All right, back of another tier rankings. Only two teams on the board right now because they have to play Monday night. Every other team played this week, so we're going to talk about them all. Let's just get into it. Starting off with the Titans, who, I thought had started to look a little better. This was an unfortunate loss to to the Commanders. I've been keeping them in the bad tier. I think that's probably where they're going to end up for the rest of the season, unfortunately. But yeah, that's where I have them. The Dolphins, who there's no getting around it, that was a disappointing loss. And I thought they, at times, looked really good. Like, their offense was able to almost make a game of it, but then just couldn't cash in the end zone. They still would have had an uphill climb had they scored there, though. It was an unfortunate game. Them against winning teams, them in cold weather. It is starting to become a thing. I don't know if I'm Indy feels like playoffs with them at this point. I think I have to drop them down a tier to solid, just because like at a certain point you have to win games. You have to be able to beat good teams, and even this year when they've looked better, they still haven't been able to beat those good teams. The Jets are bad. I mean, they're a bad team. They're an annoying team because at times they look good, like we saw, but they got a lot of special teams help and still weren't able to take advantage. Aaron Rodgers played bad. I mean, it just is what it is. I don't know who's going to want him next year. I've kind of defended a lot of Rodgers' play this season, but this was not a good game by him. So, yeah, tough situation for the Jets. Who would have thought being worse than Zach Wilson? I didn't see that coming. I'll say that. The Bengals, who, some of you have heard this before, another game where they put up 30-plus points and lose. I read the stat on the podcast, but the Bengals have scored 27 or more points 7 times this season. They're 2-5 in those games. It's absolutely crazy what this defense has done. I at one point I had them in what was the equivalent of the feels like playoffs tier. I might have to drop them down to scrappy at this point. Like, I don't care how good Joe Burrow is. If you're losing every game, what does it matter? Jaguars I invented a tier for Mac Jones Jaguars, so I thought I was going to have to get rid of that tier this week, and then Trevor Lawrence got injured, so now they're back. I will say, I thought Jones looked better in this game. I thought the team looked better in this game, but as of right now, I'm still going to keep you here. The Lions, so this is interesting. You might be, if you're someone who's really keyed into these videos, you might be saying, wait a second, wasn't there a tier above Super Bowl contenders, the It's Their Year tier? That was a tier I invented for the Detroit Lions because of how good they were looking. I now no longer feel like they are in a tier of their own. To be clear, Lions fans, I still think I would pick you to win the Super Bowl over anybody else. I just don't think that you're in a tier by yourself anymore. I think that there are some teams that I think are in that tier, and we'll get into it. So it's just as much other teams, looking better as it is the Lions, maybe looking worse, and even looking worse. I just think they're banged up. They have a lot of injuries now in the defense. That's my biggest concern. Those are starting to pile up, and can they overcome that? Yes, they can, but will they? Still, maybe. Yeah, I would bank on it. But it's possible they can't also. So that's why I bumped them down to the top tier, if that makes sense. The Vikings, who I've been keeping in dark horse. I just realized that I have 2 Super Bowl contenders tiers here, so I got to get rid of one of those. There we go. But I guess because I still had It's Their Year there as well. But yeah, Vikings I'm putting in the dark horse tier. Feels fair, right? I've been keeping them in this tier all season. They win a gutsy win against the Arizona Cardinals. I think they were able to make the right adjustments offensively to find a way to win. Hey, there's something to be said about winning games late. A lot of times it does come down to coaching and making the right adjustments. They have good coaching. They make the right adjustments, able to get that victory. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who I've been keeping in a solid tier. I still think that's fair. I still think this is a really good offense. And you saw even with, maybe not being a complete roster and Baker Mayfield playing really bad in that game, they still were able to win because of how well Bucky Irving and Mike Evans played and getting a nice fumble in overtime. This is certainly not the game Tampa Bay wants to be playing down the stretch, but if you can win your bad games, that'll get it done. So, and I think Carolina's, as we'll get into, is a little better than people give them credit for. But, as a whole, this, I think, lowered their stock, but I'm still going to keep them in the solid tier. That's how I viewed it. The 49ers, who I think I have to drop them down to scrappy, right? At this point, again, it's similar to Cincinnati, where it's like, I don't care who to play, what the names are in the back of the jersey. I care about how you're playing. Losing to the Bills is fine. Even that game of having it be, the snow game, like, it's a weird situation. I totally acknowledge all that. But like, I don't know. It's tough. And Christian McCaffrey is now out for the year. They're so injured, which seems like it happens to the 49ers every other year, unfortunately. And this is one of those years. And then moving on to the Atlanta Falcons, I mean, I think I have to do it. I think I have to drop them down to scrappy as well, which is unfortunate because this defense played great against the Chargers. There's a lot, I thought Bijan Robinson, despite not lighting up the box score, was really good. I thought that Drake London was fantastic. He just is fantastic. He's great. I thought they protected a lot better than maybe I thought they would going up against, a good pass rushing defense. It didn't matter because they didn't get the quarterback play. And that just can't happen. I mean, Cousins, just the reality is that has not been a good contract this season. It could turn around. We have seen Cousins at times look great. He had that 500-yard game against Tampa Bay. Really, it's against Tampa Bay. He's looked great. That's kind of been the thing. I don't know if it can continue. They need to get turned around. They're playing Minnesota next week, so it's a bit of a tough spot. It's the quarterback thing. At the end of the day, there are, you can make the argument there are two types of teams in the NFL, those of quarterbacks and those without them. And right now, despite putting a lot of resources into the quarterback position, they're a team without them, but there still is hope Cousins can turn it around. The Ravens, who, again, I mean, I feel like I'm being pessimistic on all these teams. I've been keeping them, so they were at one point in Super Bowl contenders, and locked into Super Bowl contenders. I dropped them down to dark horse, and I kind of said when I did that, okay, surely you're going to make your way back to Super Bowl contenders. This is almost just like a punishment for dropping a couple games that you shouldn't. I think I got to drop them again to just feels like playoffs. Again, it's one of those things where at the end of the day, you're not winning football games. And while I think that there is a lot of talent and there is a chance this team could go on a run, again, I don't view the teams in Super Bowl contenders tier as the only teams that could win the Super Bowl. I think if you get into the playoffs, anything can happen, and they're one of those teams where they're going to get into the playoffs. You still have these awesome offensive pieces, but the defense, which played a lot better against Philadelphia, has been too spotty this season, and they find ways to lose games sometimes. Justin Tucker is an issue, and kicking matters. So, I don't know, and I don't think they're going to move off of him, so it's just an issue, and Lamar didn't play his best day against the Eagles either. But again, I could see them getting back in dark horse tier. But for now, that's where I have them. The Bears, who, okay, listen, there are some definite positives with the Bears. Caleb Williams has looked better. Their defense is still very good. They fired their head coach. A lot of positives going on with the Chicago Bears. I still think, I had them in the scrappy tier. That feels fair for me. Scrappy, I view it as like, okay, you're losing games, but you don't look awful while doing it. And that's kind of where all these teams are at, even if it feels weird to put the Bears in the same tier as the Bengals and 49ers. It's probably more of an indictment on those two teams than it is on the Bears. Cowboys are bad. They're just a bad team. Hey, they won a game, but they beat one of the worst teams in the league. Not going to take too much into it. Why was that game on Thanksgiving? I get it's the Cowboys, but I don't know. That was a tough one. Next up, we have the Texans, who I put in the solid tier, and I guess I got to keep them there. But, man, is this team winning in underwhelming ways, right? And now Azeez Al-Shaair might be suspended down the stretch, and they have 3 tough games down the stretch as well. The nice thing is, because they have the tiebreaker for the Colts, all they need is to go 1-3 and have the Colts go 3-1 or worse, and they're in. Now, the Colts have a very easy schedule. The Texans have a very tough schedule, but I think that happens. I think the Texans still end up as the 4 seed, but just the way they're playing right now, you can't feel much better about them doing much more than that. You just can't. Stroud needs to play better. I don't think this game has been all his fault. I don't think this slide has been all his fault, but he needs to be more, kind of what I said last week. I don't think he's the problem, but he needs to be more of the solution, is how I see it. The Colts are next on this list. Hey, they win a game. I still don't know if I love this roster, but all these teams are the ones that lose but look kind of all right doing it. This team is winning, but maybe doesn't look overly impressive doing it. But like I said, there is a pathway to even the division if they can win out. They have a bye week, and then they play Denver, followed by 3 games in theory should be easy. Granted, this game should have been easy. They barely, got the win here. They still have some weird stuff going on. Anthony Richardson is still a quarterback that, is so up and down. But hey, they're in the playoff hunt. That's all you can ask for if you're a Colts fan. The Rams, who I would still say I want to see look more impressive. I think Stafford's been very inconsistent this season. Part of that is the offensive line injuries and all that stuff. They don't block well enough for him. But still, they do have weapons, and that helps. The defense had a big game against the Saints. I don't know if that says more about the Saints than the Rams defense, but hey, you'll take what you can get if you're a Rams fan. They're in the solid tier, have a chance at the playoffs, but probably need to, they have to win the last 2 games of the season against Arizona and Seattle. Those are both must wins. The Chargers, who, Chargers haven't looked as good these past couple weeks. They just haven't. There's no getting around it. They were able to beat the Falcons, but kind of like I talked about with the Falcons, this game, that should have been an Atlanta win. Like that, Kirk Cousins threw that game away. This was not a good performance by the Los Angeles Chargers. And I get that, had Kirk Cousins not thrown one of those interceptions, the whole thing changed. But like, they scored 10 points in this one, right? Because they had I'm trying to remember, but they had a pick 6 in there, and then they went for 2 and got it. So I guess, do you give the offense credit for going for 2? I suppose so. How do you want to divide that points? You could argue they scored 9 offensive points or 11 offensive points, but either way, it wasn't good enough. It was good enough, but it's not going to be good enough in some other games. I still am going to put them in the fields like playoffs. I still think this defense is really good, so you have that going for it. I just think they need more receivers. Labanconkey was great. I think their next leading receiver was Quentin Johnston with like 12 yards. They need more receivers. That's going to be a point of emphasis this offseason. But they're still, they're still clearly a playoff team for me. But a bit of a disappointing couple weeks for them. I think that's fair to say. The Raiders are bad. They nearly beat the Chiefs, but everyone nearly beats the Chiefs. They're a bad team. O'Connell looked better. He for sure looked better. So you feel good about that. Brock Bowers is amazing. Jacoby Myers is very good. They have some other stuff, but they don't have enough other stuff. The Commanders, who, I had been keeping a dark horse for a while. After, their losing streak, you kind of had to drop them down a tier. I'm still going to keep them here for now. I think there is potential for them to get back into the dark horse category, but blowing out the Titans just isn't going to do enough for me to get them over. So that's where I have them. The Chiefs, I think I have to do it. And maybe this is the hot take. I don't know. But I don't want to just say, well, you're the Chiefs, you're going to be in Super Bowl contenders no matter what, right? I think that's not the best analysis. I want to give my honest opinion. I just don't view them as a top-tier team right now. I know that their record is, they're tied for the best record in football, but the way that they're winning some of these games, I went through it on the podcast, but their last 5 games that they played, it started with beating the Buccaneers in overtime in a game that might have been decided by the coin toss. You have beating the Denver Broncos the following week on a blocked field goal. You then lost to the Bills by double digits. They barely beat the Carolina Panthers on a last-second field goal, and then beat the Raiders in this crazy game. We can say they find ways to win, and I don't disagree with that. I do think they find ways to win, and I don't agree with the refs help them out thing. I just don't agree with that. And maybe they get the occasional superstar call, but I don't think the league is rigged to help the Chiefs. I don't think the league cares that much. I think the league would love a Bills Lions Super Bowl, right? But at the same time, this is not an impressive looking team. Now, they are getting a new tackle. That should help because it can't get worse, right? That should help at the left tackle position. I don't know why they didn't make more of an emphasis in the offseason. They did draft a project guy in the second round, but it's not shocking he wasn't able to come in and play great right away. He was a project. That's an issue. It could get fixed, and that could bring them back up a tier if that does get fixed. I also don't think this defense is as good as it was. It's you don't have L'Jarius Sneed, who was a number 1 corner for you. And even though you probably made the right move letting him walk, as it looks right now, still, you had a number 1 corner that now you don't have. That doesn't matter for you. They've had other injuries. They've had a lot of injuries this season, too. So, yeah, I think dark horse feels fair for them. I do. Next up is the Saints, who are annoying because I was kind of ready to do the, okay, are they making the playoffs? Like, I was ready to do their, I do my playoff predictions video, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to do a section on do a segment on the Saints because like they're in the hunt, and then they drop this one. And then Taysom Hill gets hurt. That stinks as well. They're scrappy. Again, there's things to like about this roster, but they're not complete enough. They don't really, I think with the injuries to their receiving core, they just don't have enough there. I think that's the biggest issue. I don't even think Carr's been bad this season, really, when he's been out there, but it's just they don't have enough on the outside to help him out. I think that's how I see it. Although Carr didn't have his best game in this one either. But yeah, the Giants, I think I'm gonna, last week I put them into Mac Jones Jaguars tier. I think I gotta put him there, right? This is just it's a rough situation for the Giants. Drew Lock came in, didn't play that much better than Tommy DeVito, so not ideal there. The Philadelphia Eagles, who I gotta put in Super Bowl contenders. I just do. First time all year, I put them in this tier. They started off slow, but like as of right now, I mean, we've seen the Eagles do similar to this before, right? I mean, when they went to the Super Bowl, this was a very similar, way that things went. And for the Eagles, if the Lions lose to the Packers on Thursday and the Eagles went out, that's enough. The Eagles are the 1 seed, so that could happen, and that's pretty exciting if you're an Eagles fan. The Steelers are next up, who, big win, and I brought this up on the podcast. Like, the Steelers used to have to play where if it was a shootout, they were losing the game. If the other team was scoring points on them, they're just losing. That's not the case anymore. Granted, it was Cincinnati. It was a bad defense. I don't know if they're doing this against, a Detroit, or a Philadelphia, right? But they can do it against Cincinnati. They can find different ways to win. Usually when we say find ways to win, it means turn it into an ugly game and then beat them with experience. Here, it wasn't an ugly game. It was a very exciting game, and they were able to win that way, which is, I think, exciting if you're a Steelers fan. I'd put them in dark horse. I still feel like that's fair. I think that they're, a team that definitely has a chance, but I don't know if I'm putting them in the top tier. That's where I have them. Next up, we have the Packers. I wonder if Packers fans are going to start clamoring for Super Bowl contenders. They're in the conversation. I'm considering them. I think for right now, I'm still going to keep them in dark horse. But like Jordan Love, it's just back to last year's Jordan Love, and that's huge for them. Possible he just got banged up early on, and that was kind of his issue. Maybe so. I thought at the time that was a bit of an excuse. Might have had some reality to it. Even in a game where Josh Jacobs kind of got bottled up, they were able to make enough happen to, move the ball effectively. I also think probably the biggest difference between this year's Packers team and several other years' Packers teams, even before Love became the starter, was the Packers defense is playing really good. I mean, if you have a good defense along with a Matt LaFleur offense, this team can go on a run. They absolutely can. The Carolina Panthers, who are clearly Super Bowl contenders after Bryce Young is playing this well. Okay, not quite that much, but they've been playing very good. I still think you have to keep them in the scrappy tier, right? You just do. But, Bryce Young playing well. He was the better quarterback in that game. He absolutely was. They were able to, I still don't think they haven't quite enough receivers, but they do have Adam Thielen, who made an unreal catch in this game. There's a lot to like about this Panthers team. Defense hasn't looked great this season. Did play well against Tampa Bay, but as a whole, you feel pretty good about yourself if you're a Panthers fan right now. This is kind of the realistic ideal scenario that could have happened this year was, not everything gets fixed, but Bryce Young looks a lot better. So, yeah, there you go. The Cardinals, who are a frustrating team, right? Because it really is. I keep saying, I can't figure out this team. And once they go on this winning streak, I'm like, okay, I figured them out. They're good now. I'm willing to admit they're good. I was too late. And then they drop a couple games. And even in this one, they almost pulled it off. It looked like they were going to pull off the upset, and it would have been a huge win if they could get it, because then there was a chance that even if they lose next week, they could still get the division. They need to win next week. I really think that whoever wins next week, that's the division, which is weird to say with still a month left after next week. But that just given the way these two teams are at, if the Cardinals lose that game, then they would be in a situation where they're now a game back and they don't have the tiebreaker, or no, it would be 2 games back, and they don't have the tiebreaker. But the Seahawks have a much tougher schedule. So if these two teams are tied, then Arizona almost certainly gets in. So it's interesting there. But yeah, all that being said, for the Cardinals, you can hear more about that in my playoff predictions video. I put them in feels like playoffs. I think I have to drop them down a tier. I think I have to drop them to solid, which is unfortunate because they did nearly beat the Vikings. It wasn't a horrible week, but like, again, at a certain point, you have to win games. If they win next week, they'll be in feels like playoffs, and they'll probably be locked into there for the rest of the year. Let's go to Seattle now. Let's actually go a little out of order just because they're similar. I'm going to put them in feels like playoffs. I mean, at the end of the day, they got the win and the Cardinals didn't. So, like, I feel a little better about Seattle. They're making the key plays. You have Leonard Williams playing great. I don't know. Feels like these two teams. You know what? I'll keep the Cardinals back in feels like playoffs. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm gonna keep them here just for one more week. These two teams, because they feel like they should be in the same tier. I do feel a little better about Seattle than Arizona right now, which is probably a good news if you're a Cardinals fan. Because every time I'm out on the Cardinals, they do well. Every time I'm in on the Cardinals, they do poorly. So we'll see what happens here and what a game that should be. The Bills, who I made them wait for it. But yes, I'm keeping them in the Super Bowl contenders tier. So 3 teams in the Super Bowl contenders tier. Only one in the AFC right now, and that is the Bills. So I feel like the Bills are the favorite. Now, again, could things go south? Absolutely. But one of the nice things about where they're at is the AFC has the Chiefs. So you can never call it weak, right? Like, as much as we want to say the Chiefs haven't looked impressive, they're still the Chiefs. They are. But, like, this is a weaker conference than we're used to in the AFC. Usually there's like 3 or 4 Super Bowl contender teams every year. Now the Ravens haven't been as good. The Bengals have been a mess. The Steelers are good, but I still think that the Bills, you know, if they're going to win a Super Bowl, they feel like that's a game they'll have to win in the postseason. So, like, this might be their best shot. But we said that last year and they lost to the Chiefs, so who knows? Finally, the Patriots, who, you know, Drake May's looked good. The rest of the team hasn't. I mean, not the worst thing in the world if you're a Patriots fan seeing that, but still a disappointing loss, I'm sure, especially going for 2 there. So sorry, Kyle. But hey, at least I don't have the Patriots in the worst tier, but not looking great. So yeah, that is my tier list post week 13. Only 5 games left. Only 5 weeks left here. Interesting stuff, but yeah, those are my thoughts on all this. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you, and of course, as always, thanks for watching.